Are you an athlete who keeps getting injured in the same spot over and over again? I got you. Hey y'all, I'm Dr. Van, your No BS chiropractor. I just want to explain one quick concept and just let you understand how this needs to be addressed. In the beginning stage, you're going to get treated with acute care, and that's going to be things like ice or heat. You may use pain medication, depending on who you go see, to reduce inflammation and make you feel better and all that kind of stuff. You are probably going to be advised to rest and do nothing. At least avoid activity, avoid exercise, and avoid darn near anything with that joint or that muscle or whatever. When in the very beginning stage, that could be good recommendations or good advice. But very quickly, once you get out of the acute phase, unless you have a bone that's broken in half or you need surgery like right now, then the answer is you have to get stronger in the correct movement pattern that uses that joint or that muscle. If you don't ever rebuild or increase your strength with that joint or muscle, it's going to happen again. And it doesn't mean that you're weak in general. It just means that is weak relative to the rest of you. So you have to get everything back in balance. I can't stress this enough. I've talked about this with NFL players that keep pulling hamstrings over and over again. A lot of them is because they don't train their hamstrings, or if they do, it's just a side note next to all the other exercises they do. And so they're elite athletes. They're very strong. They're in great shape, but relatively speaking, the strength of the hamstring isn't strong enough to keep up with the strength of every other part of their body. So the weak part of the body is what gives out. That's the concept. If it's an ankle sprain, now there's balance can play into that as well. But again, you may train squats and deadlifts and all these other things, but how often do you actually spend time strengthening the foot or the lower leg, the calves, or even the tibialis anterior? Again, it's a weakness. Now, this can apply to athletes across the board. If you have an injury that keeps happening over and over again, yes, there can be other factors, but I would say the most common is there is a weakness that needs to be found and then fixed. And if you fix that weakness, here's the irony of it. If that is your weakness that is so weak relative to the rest of you that you are able to be injured in that spot multiple times, it is also most likely the limiting factor in your sports performance. And so the same movement pattern that we may find and use to rehab you is a similar one that we may actually use to make you stronger, faster, better at your sport. So the idea is we want to have, somebody needs to evaluate you to find where are you weak, relatively speaking, and improve that weakness, get it more in balance with the rest of you before an injury happens. So again, it's injury prevention, but by doing that, that is going to increase your athleticism, at least in some ways, for sure. It will increase your ability to perform your sport. Now, we can apply this to the everyday person. For example, low back pain. There's so many times a person will come in and we will talk about exercise and things like that, and they simply don't want to do it, and that's okay. It is your choice. But chiropractic is amazing, and we can fix many, many, many things. But if you have very weak muscles and what I call intolerance to a certain movement pattern, you're really never going to be 100% better or 100% safe from not injuring it again. So that intolerance to a movement pattern, what does that mean? I guess to be specific, it could be a person who, if they bend over, like say 10 degrees, no problem. If they bend over to 30 degrees, then boom, they get pain, or boom, they get, something goes out. That shouldn't happen. That is lack of strength in that range of motion. And so this, again, we can apply this to athletes, but this is for the everyday person. If you are someone who you have pain in a joint, and so you avoid movements that might, quote, hurt that joint, well, then you're also never getting strength back in those movements that would affect the joint. We have to work into a full range of motion into the joint that is hurt and strengthen in a full range of motion. So, and again, I can take it back to the athlete. I see a lot of athletes nowadays that are doing quarter squats because they can load a ton of weight on the bar and it makes them more explosive. Well, maybe, but the more you do that and you get your musculoskeletal system out of balance, meaning you're strong at the very top range of a squat, but if I was to ask you to squat all the way down, you're weak as a kitten, relatively speaking, because you don't ever go there. Well, again, you're missing out on athleticism, on performance, but you are absolutely creating a situation that you are more likely to get injured. So, I mean, I could go on and on this topic. But for athletes and everyday people alike, on a regular basis, consistently, if you have injuries that keep happening, you need to find an exercise that you can do safely, that does not create a sharp pain when you do it. You need to do that exercise in the fullest, deepest range of motion possible, and that is critical. And if that means you start with a small range of motion and then you over time, the goal, instead of to use weight, is to simply get into a deeper range of motion, then let that be your goal. But the eventual long-term goal is we want to do a movement that you can exercise the joint, get into the fullest range of motion, and then once you can do that with your body weight and you can safely do it and it's comfortable, then over time you have to add resistance. And it doesn't have to be heavy weights. You don't need to squat 500 pounds to do this, but you do need to add some kind of resistance to build strength in the deepest range of motion of that joint. In essence, you need to build strength or tolerance of that joint in different ranges of motion. If you only use and are strong in a very small range of motion, that means any time in life where you accidentally get into a deeper range of motion or a different range of motion, the risk of injury skyrockets. So there you go. I guess that's my 2 cents for the day. Athlete or layperson alike, get strong in deep ranges of motion, find where you're weak, get stronger in that weakness. It will not only make you a better athlete, more functional in life, it'll protect you from injury. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comments below. I'd love to help. You're welcome.